This FedGov Today program is sponsored by Maximus. The Navy's guided missile destroyer, the USS Gravely, is underway now in a mission for U.S. Northern Command. The Navy says the deployment's part of its One Atlantic concept. Admiral Daryl Caudle is commander of U.S. Fleet Forces Command. At Sea Air Space 2025, he tells me the One Atlantic concept has been in place for several years and it's starting to mature.
It started from the concept that, especially in the Atlantic, and it is applicable more globally, but because of the size of the Atlantic, that we could gain opportunity by sharing forces more seamlessly between the European Theater Commander and the Northern Command Commander and the Unified Command Plan line that splits the Atlantic in half. Our traditional model would have us get forces that are globally managed to one side or the other, and once they deploy, they are not fungible and seamlessly transferred across. Unfortunately, the adversary doesn't adhere to those lines in the water. So the ability to maneuver those forces across those seams within our own Unified Command Plan line was a natural fit. So that was good, and it's worked really well. Admiral Munch at NAVUR and me for NORTHCOM have been doing this now very successfully, and we do this up and through our combatant commanders. But the other piece that actually does is that it really makes the utility of our forces higher. So instead of me having to basically give Admiral Munch more force, which diminishes my ability to generate that force using that, I can hold on to that because he knows if he needs that, I can flow that to him more seamlessly. Now, the best part, because no good deed goes unpunished, if you will, is we've expanded that to SOUTHCOM as well. So now the Southern Command commanders got involved with this, and we recently demonstrated that during a Russian submarine excursion, several events pulled into Cuba, where we flowed forces all the way from Europe to NORTHCOM to SOUTHCOM, all of the same package of forces, just sharing that all the way. And in fact, today we're doing southern border protection operations using a One Atlantic, albeit South Atlantic operation. And we look to extend this to the Pacific as well.
You said this has worked really well. What are the indicators? What are the markers that give you that confidence?
I think it's the utility of these forces that we've been able to accomplish the mission with what I would say is about a third less force than the general global force management system would require because of that sharing. So with 30% less force, I'm able to conduct the same mission effectiveness.
Is that informing at all the way that you're operating in the Red Sea? Does that give you flexibility to move forces there in the same way that you're talking about
100%, the other? 100%. I completely agree with that. We don't really call it kind of the one Eastern Med maybe concept, but it is doing that. The 5th Fleet Commander and 6th Fleet Commander are doing the exact same thing in the Red Sea. And the seam there is the Suez Canal. So when ships need to be repaired, they can flow into the Mediterranean, do that. They can flow back into the Red Sea. We can rearm in the Red Sea. So all that sharing is being done very effectively with the Navy. And I think we set the bar very high in the Navy for doing that. I don't think we would be as effective in the Red Sea without that level of sharing.
What did you have to do operationally between when you conceived this strategy and when you executed on it to prepare sailors and civilians to be able to execute?
Well, I think we had to get the structure ready for it. It's not the normal way, as I mentioned. So we had to get the joint staff ready to have this conversation. They want to actually have units assigned to a particular commander. They hold them for the deployment, and we don't do this. So in our GIFMIG, which is our Global Force Management Instruction and Guidance process, we got language in there that allows us to share these forces for 45 days without any Secretary of Defense orders book changes. So and we're trying to get 60 days, a change that would do that. The authority for the combatant commander to delegate that sharing down to the component commander was also a change. So were those structural changes, and then the Navy, we just take it and we start going and operating it.
It sounds like there may be lessons to learn for your friends and colleagues across the other services, across the joint force too, sir.
100%, I agree with that, yes.
The preparation for the Red Sea, I imagine, also involved equipment, sailors, and so on, separate from that strategic preparation. What did that look like, sir? Well,
I think for operations in the Red Sea, we have always certified our carrier strike groups to operate at 6th Fleet, 5th Fleet, and 7th Fleet. Our Comp 2X, which is currently underway right now with the Gerald R. Ford Strike Group, prepares those sailors, 8,000 folks, with aircraft carrier and destroyers and air wing to be ready to operate in those three areas of responsibility. I think what's really changed is the getting the feedback from Eisenhower Strike Group and building the lessons learned from real-world combat operations into that training syllabus. And then the rate at which we are learning right now with the Truman Strike Group and what they're doing there is constantly being built into how we're preparing those sailors, those warriors, to fight most effectively in the Red Sea.
What are the kind of lessons that you're pulling from those, sir?
It's things, how to employ the radars most effectively, how to triage that very complex environment, what rules of engagement enhancements are needed, how to sift through the myriad of contacts that are there for the proper shot doctrine so we don't waste weapons and utilize the best weapon for the best target. So that turn loop on those lessons learned has been very fast, very effective. It's got the right people involved in that conversation, and we're getting that back real time now. What used to take up to a year to process, went to about a month with Eisenhower, is now down to 1 day, really, with Truman.
What's given you that acceleration?
It's the way we have trained the ship to get those data packages back to these communities of practice in real time, over the air, so that we learn how to do doctrinal changes and assess those back here on the homeland in near real time.
Have you had to do anything back here with those COPs to equip them to be able to do that?
We have completely changed in many instances for one-way UAVs, what type of shots that we're taking. We're fielding new systems on our ship, so we have better matching of capability, or a smaller weapon system can be used based on the threat. So I'm not having to shoot SM2, SM6 for something where the cost curve is upside down. And we're training these commanding officers and their crews to utilize the full suite of that. And all those lessons are coming back from SMITIC out in San Diego, Surflant, NAVWAR, and Dahlgren are all working together to go change those doctrinal processes.
Last time you were here, we talked about data and how you were using data in any number of different ways. And it sounds like in the last year, that use of data has only accelerated exponentially.
100%. And it's the way we're able to take it, digest it, put it into our systems back here, see what they actually saw, including the audio from Combat Information Center, and hear what the actual tactical action officer was saying, what the commanding officer was saying. That match to the scenario is letting us get this dialed in.
When you sit down with Ms. Rathbun and the others in IT leadership in the Navy, what are those conversations like? Where do they start with, we would like to be able to do this, how do we go about doing it? Or do they start with her saying, we have a capability now that you may be able to do something with, some combination of both?
I think the normal muscle memory is, I've got a thing, Caudle, go figure out how to use it.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get where those things are there so we don't start from scratch, but they're nimble and flexible and adaptable enough that I can give folks like her in that world my requirements, and that can quickly be adapted in that IT space.
Another location I want to ask you about that's been a huge topic of conversation here, and that's the Arctic. Another topic we covered last time we got together.
Yes.
What's your sense of how that location has evolved over time, and what the Navy's role is in working with the Coast Guard, international partners in presence there?
I think, I preach the Arctic heavily. It is the place that most don't care about, and they just don't understand what's up there from minerals, natural gas, rare earth, oil, and the Russians actually trying to, mark claim to that territory and try to control that body of water. And so we cannot, relinquish that space. It's extremely important that we have enhanced presence, really great capabilities, because it is austere up there and cold, high latitudes, communication, navigation systems, and then we have great partnerships. And then the partners that we have are fantastic. I'm doing a lot with Canada up there, doing a lot with the Coast Guard up there, and I couldn't be more thrilled. I was able to take some DVs up there during the last ice camp. I got some time with Fox News up there, where I was able to, get to show them firsthand that environment and what the U.S. Navy can do up there. And so I think the awareness is, everyone's catching on to the importance of that. As that polar ice cap continues to melt and that northern sea route opens up, we cannot be left behind as a Navy up there. And it's an extremely important frontier.
You can read more about the Navy's role in the Arctic and more of the topics I covered with Admiral Caudle on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com.